of Telesio English in Quito, Ecuador. This is From the South, and I am Soini Gray. The Electoral Tribunal of Mexico has validated the July 1st presidential election results and is therefore officially declaring Andrés Manuel López Obrador as the winner. The former Mexico City mayor, known by his initials AMLO, secured a win at the polls with 53.2% of the votes. After a unanimous vote by the magistrates, President Janine Otalora declared the presidential election valid and assured that López Obrador satisfies the eligibility requirements for which he is declared president-elect.
I want to honor the Mexican people for exercising democracy. I want to thank the people who believed in me. I want to acknowledge the political maturity of those who accepted the election results. We are witnessing historic events. The past electoral process has taught us so much, but the most important lesson learned is that there is a need to build a new democratic conscience and a new government for our people. On July 1st, our people demonstrated their willingness to change the course of the country's future. Now it's our responsibility to accept the challenges ahead and work together for the good of our nation. The people voted for honest governance. Most of the Mexican people are tired of the arrogance and dishonesty and want to end corruption, violence, and impunity.
The candidate who received the majority of votes in the Mexican election, according to final results by this tribunal, is the citizen Andrés Manuel López Obrador. The citizen Andrés Manuel López Obrador satisfies the eligibility requirements as established in Article 82 and 83 of the Federal Constitution, for which he is declared President-elect of Mexico.
Pablo Perez has more from Mexico City.
Social and economical inequalities caused by past administration by the Revolutionary Institutional and National Action Parties, and he also will be working on ending the wave of violence that plagues the country, and it will be done listening to the victims mainly. Well, López Obrador is now finally and officially the elected president of Mexico, but it will be until December 1st when he will take over his new post.
Now, an initiative started known as the Listening Forum for Peace and National Reconciliation in Mexico by Andrés Manuel López Obrador is taking place across the country.
The murder of her daughter Alejandra in 2001 completely transformed Norma Andrade's life. She became an activist and defender of the rights of mothers and family members of victims of femicide and disappearance in the city of Juárez.
As a mother, the only thing I want is for them to solve my daughter's murder, for justice to know the truth of why things happened and what really happened, and unfortunately, that need for justice turned into a fight.
Murders committed against women is part of the face of the violence. In some cases, entire communities have been abandoned.
More than
50% ran away or have been murdered. They have also just disappeared. Justice must be served.
It was precisely in that northern area of the Mexican territory where President-elect of Mexico, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, began the forums for peace and national reconciliation.
Let us all make the commitment that we're going to develop a plan to guarantee peace in the country. We are going to be consulting constantly. I will start to travel all over Mexico again.
There will be 18 meetings in different states of Mexico, in which state authorities, civil and family organizations of victims will participate.
We are aware of the difficulty to bring together victims of different types of crime and human rights violations. We also understand that approaching these forums is not easy for many victims who fear reopening wounds, but also fear for their security.
More than 31,000 murders were recorded last year, according to the National Statistics, Geography and Computer Institute.
There is a sum of factors, and it's a very long process. One is the theme of a security strategy that is a repetition of actions of force. In other words, the use of the armed forces, militarization of the security.
The unresolved issues in the matter of security include the stopping the disappearance phenomenon, which are more than 37,000 cases up to today. Among them, the forced disappearance of 43 students of Ayotzinapa, whose parents demand truth and justice after 4 years.
In an interview conducted in Colombia, Ecuadorian President Lenin Moreno has said that his government will ask Julian Assange to leave the Ecuadorian embassy in London only if the British government guarantees that he will not be extradited to another country. The Australian-born Assange sought refuge in the embassy to avoid extradition to Sweden to face questioning about allegations of sex crimes, which he has always denied. Those allegations have since been dropped, but Assange could be arrested by British police should he leave the embassy for breaching bail conditions. Assange believes that would pave the way for extradition to the United States for the publication of a huge cache of U.S. diplomatic and military secrets on the WikiLeaks website. Under Moreno, Ecuador has increased pressure on Assange, first by suspending his communication systems in March, and then by withdrawing additional security assigned to the London embassy in May.
The agreement has to be one that defends Mr. Assange's life, human rights and international norms. If we arrive at an agreement of that sort, we will be delighted to ask Mr. Assange to abandon the embassy and submit himself to the appropriate trial for not appearing before the British courts, which is preferable to spending 6 years locked up in an embassy. If the British government guarantees us that he will not run the risk of being extradited to another country, we will ask Mr. Assange to leave. We will talk first with his attorneys.
Venezuela's National Constituent Assembly has lifted the parliamentary immunity of lawmakers who have been implicated in the assassination plot against President Nicolas Maduro. They also approved the arrest and prosecution of lawmakers Julio Borges and Juan Requesens for their involvement in the attack. Juan Requesens has already been arrested by the Venezuelan intelligence service SEBEN for his alleged role in the assassination plot. And yesterday, President Nicolas Maduro revealed evidence incriminating a number of people linked to the Colombian government and with ties to the United States in the attempted assassination carried out on Saturday. President Maduro provided a step-by-step timeline of the events leading up to and during the attack. Of the 2 drones used, one was operated from the 10th floor of a nearby building by a group which was trained in the Colombian town of Chinacota in the province of Santander. Maduro said the perpetrators had carried out observations of prior parade events but did not launch the attacks because of a lack of preparation. He said both drones were disoriented by electronic blocking devices. Now, Maduro also disclosed the identities of the individuals who carried out the attack and the identities of those who are still wanted abroad. The list includes Juan Carlos Monasteros, who recruited 11 others, all of whom had participated in the 2014 and 2017 Guerrilla violence. Maduro also named masterminds behind the attack, writer Alexander Russo Marquez, who resides in Colombia, and Osman Delgado Taboski, a financier who lives in Miami. Both were involved in the attack on Fort Paramacay last year. The Venezuelan president said he would ask the governments of the United States and Colombia to extradite those involved, and he instructed his foreign minister, Jorge Ariasa, to hand over to the U.S. and Colombian authorities all of the necessary documentation. And the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley, has visited Venezuelan migrants in Colombia. Haley reaffirmed her government's position on pushing for regime change in Venezuela. Her statements come just days after the attempt on President Maduro's life that injured 7. Haley was in Colombia for President Ivan Duque's inauguration. The U.S. has been a strong supporter of the Lima Group, of which Colombia is part. The Lima Group's main focus is putting pressure on Venezuela.
This is a crisis where the region has not been as loud and active as we would like to see. We think they need to do more, but the international community, the world in general, needs to realize that we have a dictator in Venezuela that is doing everything to protect himself and is sacrificing all of the Venezuelan people to do it. But we really have to question how long can this be sustainable. At some point, Maduro is going to have to be dealt with.
More news in a minute, but first here's a video from the team in multimedia.
No podrán con nuestro presidente, no podrán contra el pueblo, no podrán contra la revolución bolivariana, porque estamos despiertos, estamos con una conciencia cada día más abierta, más despierta, más contentos, ¿verdad?, por lo que estamos viviendo, y que bueno, pues nosotros condenamos rotundamente todo lo que pasó con nuestro presidente.
Thank you for staying with us. It is looking increasingly unlikely that the Argentinian Senate will pass the abortion bill, and this session is reportedly going to continue until midnight tonight. 39 senators have already said they will vote against the bill, while 31 say they will support it. If this bill were passed, Argentina would join Cuba, Uruguay and Mexico City as the only places in Latin America where the right to choose is legally recognized. If it is rejected, however, campaigners will have to wait one more year before a new bill can be discussed again in both houses.
Women across the world still face inequality simply for being women. I won't stop saying this. I'm not in favor of abortion. I'm in favor of the legalization of abortion. It's not only about words, it's a political and ideological stance. Today, the seat I'm filling does not belong to me. This seat belongs to all women who have fought for this and for many other rights. The criminalization of abortion has a differentiation in poor and young women. Middle and upper class women have abortions, and they are having illegal and secret abortions. We all know it. We can't be hypocrites about this. Abortions exist, and if one has money, one is able to pay for one. The problem here is the women that can't do it. When poor women suffer an abortion, they pay for it with their lives.
And activists have gathered outside the Argentine Congress to follow the vote. Hundreds of women are already protesting in favor of the abortion bill. Wearing the color green, they insist upon highlighting the plight of poor women in Argentina who are unable to access safe abortions. It is estimated that around 500,000 illegal abortions are performed in Argentina every year. Currently, abortion is allowed in Argentina in only 3 cases: rape, a threat to the mother's life, or if the fetus is disabled.
There will be 2 million of us in the streets, so we can demand that senators pass this law. We believe it's possible. It's not impossible. It depends on our mobilization and our fight to keep doing what we have been doing until now.
Women, youth in general, have to join this fight because the fight will continue beyond what happens today, and we are going for much more.
Now, earlier we spoke with the Argentinian journalist Aldania Valles from Economia Feminista. She warned that if senators vote against the bill, women in the country will be well aware of their lack of support, and they could pay a price in next year's legislative elections.
If the Senate doesn't pass this bill, we have to wait for a year until we can present again a bill to legalize abortion. But the thing is that now we are going to be aware of what senators and, well, all the people that is going to represent us in the Congress, what they actually think of the feminist agenda, and we're going to be demanding that they respect that feminist agenda and they vote for bills that can guarantee our rights in the Congress.
And from Buenos Aires, our correspondent Sabrina Roth has latest.
The debate in the Senate began at about 10:30 on the law on the voluntary interruption of pregnancy. The bill was already passed by the lower house on June 14th. The prospects are not good for the bill. 39 senators have said they will vote against, 31 in favor, 1 will abstain, and another is absent. So it seems it will be rejected. Nonetheless, there is a party going on in the streets here behind me. There's a sea of green with thousands of people with their green scarves and green clothes, and they're going to continue demanding that legal abortions become law. It's a debate between legal abortions and backstreet abortions. We should remember that last weekend in Santiago de Estero, a young woman died as a result of a backstreet abortion. There is another 22-year-old in hospital in Mendoza, Aslo, after having a backstreet abortion. When the health minister spoke here in the Senate, he said there are about 350,000 abortions every year in Argentina. In 2016, 31 women died after having backstreet abortions, and it's thought another 7 may have died because they are illegal. There are no official figures, but those were the numbers given by the minister. When the first criminal code was adopted in 1886, all the members of Congress were men. Women had neither the vote nor any right to speak, and that code made abortion a crime. In 1921, abortion became allowed in certain circumstances, which is still the situation today. For example, in cases of rape, and that's why women are demanding that they be listened to and their right to decide over their bodies be respected. That is why, even if the bill is rejected, this party will continue to demand women's rights.
Argentine social leader Milagros Sala was transferred to the General Güemes Federal Prison on Tuesday. The judge in the case declared that maximum security procedures must be used both for Sala's transfer and for any legal proceeding that she attends. The Committee for the Freedom of Milagros Sala has said that the decision to transfer Sala is arbitrary and contrary to the provisions of the Inter-American Court of Human Rights and the Supreme Court of Justice. Sala has been detained since January 2016 and was recently found unconscious while in detention. India has ratified an extradition law to include Antigua and Barbuda, presumably to begin the extradition request for an Indian businessman who was given citizenship under the Citizenship by Investment program. India says they're taking every step to bring the billionaire Mehul Choksi to trial their over $1 billion fraud allegation. Mehul Choksi is wanted in connection to an alleged $2.1 billion fraud scandal known in his home country as the Punjab National Bank fraud case. The Antiguan government insists everything was above board when Choksi applied for citizenship.
In a story, publicization needs to locate.
And Barbados' Prime Minister Mia Mottley has sought to clear the air on the relocation of Ross University School of Medicine to Barbados. Mottley says it has never been a case of poaching or enticing anyone away from Dominica. She explains that her administration was first approached on the relocation of Dominica's Ross University of Medicine on May 31st. That's just 1 week after the general elections. She said the government of Barbados acted above board and she hopes to maintain good relations between the two countries. Ross University pulled out of Dominica suddenly last week after 40 years, citing damage following Hurricane Maria.
I'm quite amazed and a bit disappointed that some Barbadians and others across the region appear duped by the attempt by a few who have sought to create discord and confusion over the decision of Adtalem Global Education to locate one of its institutions, Ross University School of Medicine, to Barbados. This is not and has never been a case of poaching or enticing anyone away from Dominica.
We're going to take a short break now, but join us again after this look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting. Welcome back. The wife of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad has reportedly started treatment for a malignant breast tumor, according to Syrian presidential media platforms and Syrian state media Sana on Wednesday. A photo released by the Office of the Syrian Presidency and Sana shows the First Lady Asma al-Assad attached to an IV line, seemingly in a hospital room. She is accompanied by her husband. A statement which was published alongside the photo reads, Asma al-Assad begins the first stage of treatment for a malignant tumor of the breast, which was discovered early. The presidency and its team wish Mrs. Asma a speedy recovery. Iranian President Hassan Rouhani warned that the U.S. administration could not be trusted as he met with the North Korean Foreign Minister Ri Yong-ho in Tehran. Local broadcaster Iran reported on Wednesday, U.S. President Donald Trump issued an executive order in June to reinstate the sanctions on Iran that were dropped following the 2015 nuclear deal, targeting critical sectors of the Iranian economy. Rouhani said Washington's attitude towards the nuclear deal showed that the U.S. was not prepared to stay committed to its international agreements. Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif questioned Washington's trustworthiness in approach to Iran, calling U.S. President Donald Trump's recent call for negotiations a publicity stunt. He made the statement when speaking to the press following a cabinet meeting in Tehran on Wednesday.
The Americans were never honest in this sphere. Mr. Trump's move was a publicity stunt. One factor that can prove Trump's total lack of concern for the Iranian people and international commitments is that the first batch of sanctions that Trump reinstated against Iran was related to aviation industry. That is, even prior to August 6, when the first wave of sanctions was reimposed. The first thing the Office of Foreign Assets Control did was to revoke the licenses of 200 airplanes, which the people of Iran were going to use. Of course, it should not be denied that the U.S. has entered the scene with a bullying approach and an economic pressure. But the reality I am seeing is that has come forward with more than economic pressure, but a psychological war. It is carrying out this psychological war with our partners. And also, unfortunately, it is carrying out this psychological war inside our country.
There is an escalating diplomatic row between Saudi Arabia and Canada after Canada called for the immediate release of women's rights activists jailed over charges of connection with foreign entities in a rupture of relations over Canada's vigorous comment on the human rights situation in Saudi Arabia. The kingdom's government has halted all new trade and investment deals and has announced the relocation of thousands of Saudi students studying in Canada. The state-owned Saudi airline has also announced plans to suspend flights to Toronto, and both countries have recalled their respective envoys.
Our people will not accept outsiders sticking their fingers in our affairs. Our people will not accept outsiders lecturing us. Our people will not accept outsiders criticizing our judicial institutions, our judges, our legal system, our law enforcement system. It's not acceptable.
The Democratic Republic of Congo's President Joseph Kabila has announced that he will not contest the election scheduled for December. After delaying the election for 2 years and causing political turmoil within the country, he has finally agreed to stick to a 2-term limit on the presidency. He has picked the former Interior Minister Emmanuel Ramazani Shadari from his People's Party for Reconstruction and Democracy as the presidential candidate. Well, that brings us to the end of this newscast. For these and many other stories, you can find them on our website at tellusyourtv.net/English. You also have the option of joining us on social media, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. For Tell Us Your English, I'm Sony Gray. Thank you for watching.